One of the big things about being in the toy industry is there's a lot of licensing. And there's a lot of strange licensing that goes on. And I'm not talking about a license where it's an empty chair, like happened to that poor woman earlier in 2020. Or, of course, licenses that you cannot believe that they actually came together. It's more about whether or not a toy company can get what is called a master toy license or just a category toy license. And this has changed a lot over the years and really affected the industry. So let me talk about first a master toy license and what it is because, well, it's kind of faded away into the past. Well, see, back in the well before times, back at Mattel headquarters and at Hasbro headquarters, they would spend a lot of time trying to decide what licenses to go after, and they would reject a lot more than they took. Now, another toy headquarters over in Cincinnati, Kenner, was an upstart in the 70s and 80s, and they also had their eye on Hollywood, trying to figure out what could be a great new license to pick up. And don't get me wrong, toy companies back then and even today have entire divisions all about scouting out Hollywood and trying to figure out what is the next big thing. You could say their spy network is vast. And if you hadn't already picked up by my talk about Kenner, well, I'm going to use the example of Star Wars because it's a great example of a company picking up a master toy license that other companies passed on and how that actually led to what's called splicing, with licenses breaking up. So let's look at the story of Star Wars going from screen to toy. So when Kenner is making their pitch to then Lucasfilm, they would have gotten to see some prototype items, some props, some artwork, so that they could create prototypes in order to pitch. Now this doesn't always happen. Sometimes toy companies have no idea what a movie's going to look like. Other times everything is shared with them, from script to artwork. It can range both sides of the spectrum. In the case of Star Wars, back in the day, because Lucasfilm was actively looking for a toy partner, they shared everything because nobody wanted it. Mattel and Hasbro said no. But Kenner came in and they pitched to Lucasfilm. Probably didn't look like this. It probably was more 1970s style clothing, and George Lucas would have been in the room. But because they were interested and they had the capabilities, they were granted the license to make Star Wars toys. And not just action figures. We obviously, a lot of us as collectors, remember Star Wars in the 80s as being a very action figure-driven property, but that was actually not even part of the way Kenner pitched it. Kenner pitched it as a vehicle line. They saw the vehicles as being what kids wanted, and that was what they were most interested in, was getting rights to the vehicles. The figures were accessories, more or less, to the vehicles. No one thought that was going to be the thing people would collect. Well, they didn't just get vehicles, they actually went all in and got what's called a master toy license. And boy, did they get one heck of a deal. They were paying like 2% royalty, something like that, which is, nobody pays that these days. And they had rights to every category in toys. And that's what a master toy license is. Dolls and figurines and things that weren't in the even character aisle or the character category, things like activity toys like, Bop It bags, or things like puzzles, which are extremely easy to do because it's label slapping, or things like role play, both sort of radio control role play, FX, which means, batteries, electronics, as well as just handheld role play, and of course medical devices. So going after a master toy license, which gets you all these different categories, is obviously because, well, you can make a lot of profit. Because anyone who wants an item from that IP has to buy through you. You have the master toy license. And what is very interesting is that things like this don't really exist anymore. It's very rare to have a master toy license be with one toy company these days. Whereas in the 70s and 80s, it was basically the standard. So why did this change? Well, it's also Star Wars, believe it or not. So Star Wars Lego, which came out about 25 years ago now at this point, and they just celebrated their 20th anniversary, well, this was the toy line that showed that Star Wars could exist beyond the action figure category as far as toys. So yes, there were role play and puzzles and Bop It bags, but as far as an actual interactive figure-based, vehicle-based toy line, other than Lego, before Lego, the only other thing out there were things like the Bendums that came out in the mid-'80s. And believe me, these were fun, and of course they, had limited edition trading cards, which I'm sure go for huge bucks on eBay these days. Who doesn't want a bendy Darth Vader with a limited edition trading card? But man, that was beautiful packaging. I do remember seeing these, and I was so shocked that they got to Admiral Akbar and the Tusken Raider. But no Greedo in this line. Either way, lines like this didn't really take off. And the idea was, okay, Star Wars is not really licensable for anything outside of basic action figures. But Lego showed that it was. And because of that, we then got an avalanche of merchandising. So pre-Lego Star Wars, if you wanted a Greedo toy to play with, you basically had one choice. Maybe there was a t-shirt out there, but, well, probably not until the 90s. Well, post-Lego Star Wars, our good friend Greedo from the Cantina, while he has about, less than 2 minutes of screen time, and you could basically pick him up in an almost unlimited number of ways in the toy aisle. This is what's called a form factor, when you take an existing character and you simply apply it to an existing type, whether it's a Pez dispenser, or a 12-inch doll, or a 6-inch action figure. 6-inch action figures are form factors. You can get tons of different characters in this form. A tiki is a form factor, and you can make that look like Greedo. You can do what's called super deformed plush. You can do Lego, which, again, was the game changer. So Greedo is no longer just an action figure in 3 3/4. He is now a bobblehead, and he is now a pull-apart, construction action figure, if you will, all sorts of ways. And this has led to a problem in the toy industry, or rather a situation where sometimes multiple companies are producing the same toy in virtually the same form factor. And this also happens because of the way licensing deals are made. And often you will get overlapping licenses. Not necessarily intentionally, not done from a malicious standpoint, but in order to maximize profit and maximize distribution, master IP holders, the people who own the rights to a property, so with Star Wars that would be Disney and Lucasfilm, they will split up the license. They could split it up by territory, for example, where Georgia gets one type and not really like that, more like this, where Asia gets one toy and South America, North America gets another, or Australia or Europe. They can also divide up a license by what type of material. So an action figure made of gravel or cement, or, it's more like, die cast or plastic or wood, but that's in one way. It can also be divided up by price point. So there could be a license for a 6-inch Darth Vader to a company that has to do it at a certain price. It's all about living in the age of form factor, and this is what really defines where we are in the toy industry today. And the biggest way that it hits economically both the consumer and the manufacturer is what's called the wallet application rule. And this is what's also known as share of wallet, where a consumer only has so much funds. And if they want that 6-inch Darth Vader, now that they have all these different options, there's really no one place you're going to purchase that, and that can then dilute everything. Now, big brands are the ones that do this the most. Small brands still look at master toy licenses, mostly because there's less people pitching to become the toy partner. Everyone wants a Star Wars toy. Hands up, who wants to be a Star Wars licensor, right? Everybody. It's both because it has proven sales, characters that are recognizable globally, and most importantly to a toy company, it represents a direct path to market, meaning your Targets, your Walmarts, RIP, Toys R Us, except for in Canada, will willingly take toys for a brand like Star Wars or Marvel, etc. The plus side for settling with a category license, not a master license, is you have a direct route to retail. But the con to that is you basically risk other companies also having a similar license, whether it's divided by territory or material or price point. And this does lead to what's called toy cannibalization, where too many toys of the same type without much differentiation can compete for the same share of wallet. So it is ironic that a brand that started off as the blueprint for having a master toy license and one company being the dominant producer, or the only producer, now through another type of toy, through Lego, became the format and the template for doing splicing. Well, I hope this video was informative and explained master toy licensing and splicing category licensing. If you liked it, do share it. It helps tell YouTube to share it with more people. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.